What's going on, folks? How you doing? Welcome into another edition of De La Spurs Live. I am your host, De La Spurs, here on this beautiful, beautiful April evening, April 15th, hump day, as the Mayan calendar once had it listed in ancient texts that this day in the middle of the week would be considered the hump day. So I hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. Hope everything's going good for you in your personal lives. You know, it's not going good with Spurs. I wanted today to talk about a couple interesting things. Now, I understand my last match reaction, I will talk about this, was very volatile, very reactionary. That was a very instant match reaction. So I do apologize about the language, me screaming, ranting, and raving. That was a very emotional response to everything. I took some time to kind of analyze, the game, the performance, what I said. So we'll kind of be reviewing everything. As you can see in the title, there's no crying in football. As you can see there, we had a couple of players in tears after the game at Sunderland. So we're going to kind of get into the topics and what I mean, why I say there's no crying in football. But first, go ahead, if you will, like this live stream, subscribe to the YouTube channel at De La Spurs. When you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get my post when I'm going live. Listen, the job was keeping me there. I couldn't leave on my usual time, so I do apologize about the stream starting later than planned, but I do try to be live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Listen, the work schedule is getting a little filled. It's getting a little busy around the summertime, as it usually does, so just forgive me on that. Continue to work with me, folks. But if you want those updates when they come through, as soon as they happen, you need to be subscribed to the YouTube. Or you can follow me on the X as well. Either or will work. That's when I'll post when I go live. I usually try to include the links as well. So feel free, take a moment to go ahead and subscribe. Also, if you would like, feel free to leave a comment as well, either in the live chat or the playback chat. Just let me know what you think about the content. Let me know what you think about, what could be said, what could be done better, some topics that you do want me to cover, topics you don't want me to cover. If you want to roast me for my most recent performance, you can go ahead and do that as well. So yeah, feel free to throw the chats in there as well. Feel free to share this content. Like I said, we hit the goal of 5 subscribers. By the way, I didn't mention that in the last live stream, but we do have to mention we did hit the goal for 5 subscribers. We're currently at 8, so now we are trying to shoot for the 10 mark, the big 10 double digits. So feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can hit that benchmark. We're gonna grow that benchmark every chance we hit it. So next goal is 10. Next goal is 10 double digits. I really appreciate it, folks, if you take that time to do that for me. Thank you. Well, listen, like I said, I got some time to think about my last performance, what was said, what was done, kind of the feel in the room. Now, granted, right, we are not necessarily in the situation room, but it is still a Defcon 1 situation we are in right now. We are still not won a game in the year of 2026. Still not won a Premier League game. Let me say that. We have not won a Premier League game all calendar year 2026. We are headed into the dead center of April. So it's getting pretty embarrassing. We still haven't won yet. And the situation just doesn't seem to move in any sort of positive direction. There's no progression. right? Still where we are as far as I guess kind of the feelings with the team, some of the discontent with either with the players while we're seeing them perform on the field, or us fans, right? When we're watching them perform, we're not seeing them give it all on the line. We're not seeing them sprinting back. We're not seeing them sacrifice limbs, blood, sweat, and tears for the job. Even though we did see Romero and Kinski actually did get hurt, but either way, what I mean is that we're not seeing the team give it all up like we would want them to. We're not seeing the team go for it. And ultimately, we're not seeing the team win. They're not being successful in any of these efforts, even with Roberto De Zerbi coming in. Seems like still the same patterns that we've been seeing since Ange, Thomas Frank, Tudor, and now Roberto De Zerbi. So it's a little worrying. It is a little worrying. And if we can't change this, can't turn the ship around, it's going to be inevitable. It's going to be what did the purple guy in Marvel say? Thanos, what did he say? Run from it, hide from it, can't escape it. I am the inevitable. That's what relegation is. That's what relegation is telling us right now. Try to run from it, try to hide from it. You can't escape it. It is the inevitable relegation. But as you can see in the title, I wanted to talk about something. Now, again, in my last live stream, I was going after the players, right? They were crying. They were just showing their emotion about just how frustrated and how upset they were about the current situation that they're in losing the game. And as you can see here, I can get the pictures back up. I mean, yeah, it's not the best look. It's not the best look for Spurs, man. You can't have players doing this on live media, live coverage. And granted, Christian Romero was hurt, right? So I'm sure some of those tears were probably in pain, not necessarily saying he's just simply crying because he pities himself, pities the team, pities or feels bad about the situations he's in. And a lot of fans have actually speculated that the reason why he's crying is because he's going to miss the World Cup, and that he won't have another, or I shouldn't say another performance or another chance, but it's looking like he may miss out a little bit on it. I think the updates did come out, though, that he may still be available, right? But, I'm sure he wants to actually get playing time on the field. And with this injury, it may hold him up. He may not see the field during the World Cup, if not in the very late stages. We'll have to see. But a lot of fans speculated that was the reason why he's crying. As for Van de Ven, I'm sure that his is out of pure frustration of the situation he's in. I'm sure he doesn't like being in 18th place with Tottenham. I'm sure he doesn't like going to Sunderland and losing. I'm sure he didn't like the performance he put in on the day. So, I think that it kind of came to a head for both of these players who I think a lot of Tottenham fans consider to be our best players. But I wanted to address why I say there's no crying in football. What exactly? Now, that is a quote from a baseball movie. Right? So I took out baseball and substituted in with football. So first of all, that's where I got the inspiration from. This is not an original quote. I just thought I'd say that, right? Can't take that as my own. But the reason why I said that and that there's no crying is that, in my opinion, in just looking at the situation, I see it as this. First of all, these players are at the top, you could say maybe 1% to 3% of humans in the world that can even play this sport at this level, right? So there's very few players, right? I should say 1% really, but there's very few players that can play at this high of a level as it is, right? When these players first start their careers, whether they pick up the ball, they've been kicking the ball around since they were 4 or 5 years old, or they start taking football seriously around their preteen years while they're a teenager, and they're able to fight and get up to this level. Whether they were playing football out on the streets with their friends and neighborhoods, or they've grown up within the football academy, within a footballing culture, they breathed it in from day one, if they had parents who played football, whatever the situations may be. When these players set themselves up or start working towards the goal of becoming a professional football player. Ideally, and I'm not sure what goes through everybody's mind, but ideally, I imagine these players are saying, I want to play football for three reasons. Really, two reasons, but I'll say three. First of all, it's to make money, right? I think everybody knows, players know, fans know, coaches, people in the ownership, everybody knows the reason why you would even want to play the sport to this high of a level is to make money from it. And the fact that there is a market for players at a certain skill level and they will be compensated for those services, right? Those players set their sights on reaching that threshold, whether they're playing at the very top echelon in the Bayern Munichs and the Real Madrids, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a week playing the sport, or if it's at the very lowest level of pro football where you're only getting paid hundreds of dollars. You might still even have to have a second job on the side, but you're receiving some sort of income from playing football. And that's the goal for a lot of people. That's the goal for a lot of these players. How can I make money from doing this? All the blood, sweat, tears, time I invest through this throughout my childhood, sacrificing, hanging out with friends and being with family members and doing certain things. They sacrifice that to practice on football, work on their skills, go to training camps. They may cost to go to training camps. So paying that money to go to training camps, all that is an investment so that in the back end, they can make money from playing football. Reason two, they do it. They want to be successful. They want to be successful in this endeavor because they love football. And naturally, with how much you love a sport or how much you love an activity, you want to push yourself to be the very best you can be. And in getting to these high levels, whether you are playing at Tottenham, which is currently in 18th place, or you're playing for a team in the championship, League One, League Two, or again, playing in the top echelons with Barcelona, as in the Real Madrids and the Bayern Munichs, right? The Inter Milans and Juventus, all those teams that you would say are at the very top, the creme de la creme of football, right? But whether what level you kind of land at or what level you get yourself to, you want to be successful at that level. You want to be successful. No player comes in thinking that they're going to spend the next 5 to 7 years with the team in an injury-riddled team, playing bad football, no tactics, right, and achieving these low footballing results, and they're going to be happy with it. Yes, they still may be getting a paycheck, but they still want to be successful at the end of the day. The paycheck and the money that they're getting is simply part of the contract they sign from the jump. So for them, a lot of them are saying the money's already guaranteed. Once I ink my name on that paper, until I say I don't want to be paid by this team anymore, or until I say I want to leave, they're going to be receiving that money. So to them, the money at a certain point is a motivation to get there. But when you say continuing when you're with the team, especially a team that's playing as bad as Tottenham, that money is no longer a motivation. You're already getting the money. The money's already coming into my pocket. And unless something catastrophic happens to the club, right? The club is not going to cut off the wages that I signed up for. Well, now we're looking at this relegation situation, maybe a little bit different, right? We may be looking at a little bit of a different thing, but the money, right? The money is not the motivation anymore. It's being successful. The third thing I want to say is that these players want to be famous. They want to be prolific. They want their name to be etched in history because there's a lot of players that can come and go. There's a lot of players that can be here, be the flavor of the month, so to speak. But the players that are able to truly and honestly travel and go to each team, to be wanted by each team, to have a name that echoes out from not only respect from football fans, but within the football community, from ex-players to active players, to the Galacticos, to the pro amateur players. They want their name to be spoken about in a high level of respect. Kind of goes into the success point that I made, the second point, right? Because You could say success drives that, but I think honestly that is a big motivation for players. Players, yes, you could be the best player. You can be very successful at a low level team, and even though that the Galacticos at Barcelona may not know your name, you know that your name is known all around that league, all around that city, all around that area for being successful. So those points kind of interconnect with each other. But I believe that is a third and another motivational reason for why these players want to do this. The reason why I bring up these three reasons why players want to do this is because you look at the situation at Tottenham and the players that we have with Christian Romero, Van de Ven, right? You could say players like Kolo Muani, Xavi Simons, João Palhinha. You can even say now with the Vicario and Conor Gallagher, right? When these players come in, right? When these players come in and they join Tottenham, they're not joining Tottenham because they love the club. As much as that, I know that takes a lot of people back. That hurts to hear, but they don't love this club. For a lot of people, not saying this is the first time they heard of Tottenham, but I imagine for a lot of these players, when they came to Tottenham, it's the first time they've been on the grounds. When they came to Tottenham and maybe they go over the history of Tottenham, that may be the first time they hear about the history of the club. Granted, there is a rich history with this club, but you can say as of recent years, there's not that much to read through. That little section of what's happened with Tottenham from 2000 up until now, as far as success and honors, that section's going to be a little bit short, right? So I say that to say when these players come into the situation, right, or they come into Tottenham, it's not because they love the club and there's this overarching love and respect that they have from the club that's been with them from the jump before Tottenham even called their phone. No, that's not it. When they get that phone call from Tottenham, understand two things happens. One, that player, first of all, negotiates what it will take for him to go to Tottenham, right? So it's not even a matter of this player saying, I'll do it. I'll do it for only this, this, and this. He's saying, I'm going to do it if you give me this, this, and this. I will go, but I need this, and this, and this. Not I will go and you can offer me this, you can give me this on the side. No, these players make it very strict and upfront what they want from the club, what compensation they'll get. Again, the number one reason is money, right? They want that money. So they're going to set up right then and there, hey, you need to at least pay me this much. Pay me this much, right? Playing time, this situation, right? I want to have these accommodations for me. If I hit these benchmarks, I want to be compensated. If I do this with the club, I want to be compensated. I want these protections in my contract. I want a release clause. All of that will be negotiated, and that's what the player sets up. That's not something Tottenham offers the player. That's something the player tells Tottenham he needs to have if he wants to have that conversation with joining the club. So that's the players don't have this what you should say this feeling of sacrificing for the club or sacrificing for the fans. That's never going to be in a player's mind. Maybe if he's successful and wins trophies for up to a decade with the club, then maybe, just maybe, right? Or maybe he's been in the academy since he was a child and he was a fan of the club. Those extreme circumstances, maybe, just maybe, when it gets towards the end of the player's career, he would make those sacrifices. But no player at all sits there and says, I'm willing to sacrifice myself to be a part of this club, to be a part of this team. They all set themselves up with the strict guidelines of what thresholds the club needs to hit. And first of all, to even have a conversation with me, and then second, to get me to join the team. So I say all that to say this. I see the players crying. I see they're upset. I see that they're frustrated. As much as it pisses me off to see a bunch of babies crying out on the field, because they are grown-ass men, right? They are men. A lot of them have girlfriends. Some of them may have children, right? You don't want to see your children, you don't want to see your kids don't want to watch you crying because you lost a football game, right? That's what little girls do. That's what little children do when they lose football games, right? I remember when I was a kid and I lost, I cried. But guess what? I was in elementary school when that happened. Once I got into middle school, whatever soccer game, football game I played, I didn't cry. I didn't cry when we lose. I sucked it up. So, yes, it makes me angry. It makes me upset to see that my team is full of man babies that are crying because they don't know what to do with their current team. I'm just so angry. I don't know what to do. I'm so sad and angry we lost. Even though that makes me upset, right? I understand where they're coming from. I understand that when Christian Romero and Van de Ven and Xavi Simons and all these players were approached by Tottenham, they were, first of all, they set a strict guideline of what they want the club or what the club should offer them, what the club needed to give them to even play for the team. But they also told that the club, or that the club tells them that there is a plan for progression. There is a plan that is mutually beneficial in the fact that, one, you come here for us so that you can meet those thresholds of earning money, right? Being successful and being famous. And the players say, you know what, in return, I will give you the top end of my skills, technique, my body, physicality, all those things to help the club achieve the goals they want to achieve. And the club should have those goals of winning trophies and wanting to finish in the top four and being in Champions Leagues. That's mutually beneficial. That's not the players wanting to do all of those things just for the club because they love the club so much. It's a mutually beneficial contract. Literally, a contract is signed. So when these players get into these situations where they see that the club is not upholding their side of the bargain, right? They don't look at the contract. They don't look at the money that they're being given as how should I say this? They're not looking at the money saying that, oh, just because the club is paying me, that's good enough for me to be in this situation. That's because they're paying me. It's okay that they lied about the plan of reaching these levels. Since they're paying me, it's okay that we're losing every game. Since they're paying me, it's okay for for the last 5 years for us to have 5 or 6 different managers. It's okay that the club is paying me so that they can get rid and rip up the CEOs and whoever's running the club, and it'll be a different operation. There's different rules almost pretty much every season. At that point, the money does not compensate for that. The money does not compensate for the other two things these players got into football or wanted to be in football for, and that's to be successful and to be famous, right? You can say Christian Romero is famous because he's won a World Cup, but he's also famous because of this, right? He's also famous because of this, because he cried. You could say Van de Ven is very successful with the Netherlands team. He may have made a name for himself in the Bundesliga before he came to Tottenham, but now he's also famous for this. He's famous for crying. He doesn't want to be famous for that, right? These players don't want to be known for that. They want to be known for being successful. They want to be known for being the top player in that position, that league, and at that level of football, period. So these players are crying and they're upset because they're realizing that, first of all, they're not going to achieve the 2 out of the 3 things that they wanted to achieve by joining football, nor did they accept the terms of sacrificing these 2 things to come to Tottenham. I'm sure when the club approaches them, they include that we're going to make sure that you're successful. We'll make sure your name gets out there and that you're famous, and we'll make sure that you're getting paid, even though paid is probably the number 1 priority. Those other 2 are pretty important. And the players look like right now, there's nothing left of those 2 things. Right now, they're just getting paid the money. And you can make the argument where a player like Romero and Van de Ven, they can get more money somewhere else. So it's not even like you're getting paid at the very top end of the sport. Your name's not at the top of the list of the most compensated players in the world, right? These players aren't making that much compared to where they can go, where those teams will make sure they're successful and famous, and they can get more money. So I say all that to say these players, even though we've only seen the Romero and Van de Vens, but it also applies to Xavi Simons. It applies to João Palhinha. It applies to Conor Gallagher. It applies to all these other players of that level, right? When they come in, especially these players that come in from a higher or a bigger team, right? Because they come from a team where they were offered that. They've seen that before. They've actually probably hit all three of those things. And when they come to Tottenham, they're told that Tottenham will also be contributing to those three things that they want. But right now, they're only contributing to one, and that's just making sure they get paid. That's just making sure that they get paid. And guess what? Tottenham is contractually obligated to pay them at that point. They're contractually obligated to pay them at that point. So for a lot of these players, they're upset and they're frustrated because, and they're crying like babies because they're not having what they sought for themselves to be as a football player. That's not being met here at Tottenham. And they're extremely frustrated and upset, especially a player for Romero, right, who's been here for a minute, who already showed signs that he wanted to leave, was already maybe even in negotiations with some other clubs or maybe talking to some other agents, right? Here comes Tottenham coming in again saying, oh, hey, wait, before you go, we promised this season, if you re-sign, we're going to do these things. If you re-sign with us, we're going to make sure that you're successful. We're going to try to hit these benchmarks. And here's how we're going to do it. And they can paint the prettiest picture. They can lay it down all in they can lay it down. Bruh. Okay, I didn't mean to say it like that. They can lay it out. Bruh. Oh, what? I can't even say lay it out? Okay. They can discuss a plan. Let's just say that. They can discuss a plan of how they make that player successful. And they can have it all listed out on a nice spreadsheet or a nice PowerPoint that they sit Romero and his agent down to go through, right? They can make it and use it up to make it look as nice as it wants. They can have the presentation. You've seen it. You've seen it when Lance did the video with us, right? Just how nice this team, just how good the PR at Tottenham can be. They'll sit you down in that meeting room next to the training ground with the freshly cut grass and the sprinklers going, or they'll sit you down in that meeting room inside the stadium so you can see inside the nice stadium, the big seats, the nice decor, all the sparkling amenities that are around that you get to play in, right? They'll make sure that package and the setting, everything is perfect to deliver a lie, a plan that they don't achieve with the player. Even though they have it all laid out and everything, right, for the player, right? They don't do that. We've seen they don't do that at all. When it's actually time for that action to show behind all the words that they put behind the plan, they don't do it. So a player for like Romero, who's already said, hey, I want to go because you guys, yes, you're paying me, not a lot, you're paying me, but I'm not successful here, nor is my name growing as far as being a good center back, as being a prolific center back, as being named in any sort of awards. So this player is saying, hey, you're not meeting the criteria that I set for myself when I became a football player. And that's an issue. Van de Ven, same thing. You're not meeting this criteria I set for myself. And this applies to all the other players. I just use Romero as an example because he was ready to leave. But Tottenham strung him back in and said, hey, you know what? Actually, you're right. We're going to try to do these things. We're going to try to make you successful. We're going to try to do this. We're going to try to do that. But they're not hitting those benchmarks. So now that you see that the players are now in 18th place, they're looking to be relegated. They're going to be their name is going to be famous and prolific, right? Just like the third reason, like I said, famous and prolific. but not for being successful, not for winning trophies, even though they won a trophy. They're going to be famous and most well known for being the only Tottenham team to get relegated in the Premier League era. And as you can see, these players don't want to be part of that. When the final whistle blows and that reality starts to creep in more and more, this is what happens. That was crying on the day, right? That reality is sinking in. They're realizing that every day, the more and more I stay at this club, yes, they're paying me, but being successful and being famous, being prolific, my name being remembered, right? Kids saying, I want to be like a Romero, right? All that is slowly dying in and not becoming what it should be. So these players are getting upset. You're seeing the actual emotions and all that building up into a certain point now come out. And the worst part about it is that it's now coming out to the point where Tottenham is in a relegation fight. We don't need players to cry right now. We need you to score some damn goals. We don't need you to cry right now. We need you to not concede some damn goals. We don't need you to cry right now. We need you to man up, get up, and fight for this team. Fight for yourself. But right now, like I said, these players, they're feeling that, and we're seeing the actual emotional outburst. So I just wanted to kind of present that side, because again, I blew up on the players after that game. The instant match reaction, again, you guys can go back and roast me because I was just going crazy. You could probably see it in my eyes, right? I was going crazy. I was losing my mind, right? It took me a moment to kind of sit back and say, well, hold on. These are grown-ass men crying, right? Not to sound sexist or whatever, but usually men don't cry unless it's something serious going on, right? So let's try to sit down and actually analyze why a player would be crying. Yes, Romero could be missing the World Cup, right? His hero in Lionel Messi, I'm sure this is going to be his last World Cup. I'm sure for the older players in that Argentina squad, this is probably going to end up being their last World Cup, even though they're not announcing their retirement, right? I'm sure within the next 4 years, these players that are in their mid to late 30s are going to start saying, listen, football is past me. I'm more looking towards the future with my family, making sure everybody's good, and I'm going to ride the last little bits of this thing called football out to this highest degree. So I'm sure he's looking at those two things and saying, hey, I don't have a lot of time with these great players, the players I won a World Cup with, the players I looked up to as heroes. I don't have a lot of time to play with these players. It's coming to an end. And now I may not even get to participate in their last World Cup. So I'm sure that those emotions are on his mind. And is that a valid reason to be crying? I'm not an Argentina fan. I'm not Argentinian. I know I may look it, but I'm not. So, I'm not an Argentinian fan. I'm not an Argentinian player. So for me, I'm a Tottenham fan, right? So I look at this like, that shouldn't really matter. My concern is more on making sure Tottenham doesn't get relegated, right? But I see that side. I understand it. And I just wanted to address that as well. The second thing I wanted to address, I'm going to try to make this as quickly as possible, is that there's no backbone, right? There's no backbone here on this team. And the reason why I say that is, again, analyzing kind of from the last topic, what I meant by there's no backbone, or what I mean by that, is that you can bring in players like Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher is actually a perfect example. Let's go in with that, right? Conor Gallagher was brought in, a player that's originally from Chelsea, who Tottenham fans may not want to admit it, but is considered the bigger club than Tottenham, right? Just based off of more recent successes, the higher heights they achieved, right? I think they've won pretty much every trophy that you can win as a club. So yes, Chelsea is looked at as a bigger team than Tottenham. Point being, he came from the academy and from a bigger team in Chelsea. He then went to a bigger team in Tottenham in Atletico Madrid. Now, granted, he wasn't tearing up trees in Atletico Madrid. As a matter of fact, when we bought him, I remember seeing fans at Atletico saying, thank God we got rid of him. He wasn't up to the level, right? But either way, he was able to secure a position in a team that's bigger than Tottenham, was going after higher honors than Tottenham. That would pay him more than Tottenham. And again, going back to those 3 points, money, success, fame. Pretty sure Conor Gallagher was having all 3 of those criteria met at Atletico Madrid. So when he comes into a team like Tottenham, right? I know I had my doubts. I said Conor Gallagher, he's a solid player, right? I think any good team would want to have a Conor Gallagher in their team, but no good team would rely on a Conor Gallagher to get the job done. They know that, if anything, he could come off the bench, he could be substituted in for a player and provide that energy, the playing level, the technicality at a high level for a team, again, like in Atletico Madrid, the teams at the higher echelons to suffice, right? I'm not saying he's the best of the best. I'm not saying he's a creme de la creme of the midfield players that are around in football right now. But again, I think any good team would want to have Conor Gallagher on their team if they had the opportunity. They would want to try to make that work, right? But in Tottenham's case, going into this January, we were a team that's on their knees. We needed. So that sounded. Hold on. When I say, okay, let me rephrase that. This Tottenham team was desperate to bring players in, right? First of all, to make up for the lack of goal scoring. That was the biggest issue. But to make up for the lack of bodies as far as injured players that we had at the time, as well as to provide a spark that we weren't getting with the academy players that we were bringing in, that we weren't getting from either a new coach, new manager signing in Tudor, or any sort of inspiration or spark from the manager we had at the time in Thomas Frank. So we weren't getting that push, that pulse to start moving and progressing in a different direction. And Conor Gallagher, from what it looks like, since he was the only senior player that we bought, was supposed to be that guy. And we now see that bringing in a Conor Gallagher did absolutely nothing to change the tides or effects of this team. We still haven't won a game in 2026. Our form is still terrible. As a matter of fact, we're still playing the same way. You can literally say, I'm sure if you compare the game footage before Conor Gallagher came here to the game footage of when he's playing in a game, Tottenham probably looks and plays similar. So he's provided no sort of impact, no sort of pulse, no sort of inspiration, no spark to this team. And it makes you wonder why. And it makes you wonder, is Tottenham cursed? We could say the same thing for Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons came in, and granted, it took him a minute to adjust to the league. It took him a minute to adjust to things. I think he's helped out and contributed, but it feels like he hasn't offered that spark, that inspiration, that pulse that fans were expecting a player of Xavi Simons' level to bring. I mean, he was at an RB Leipzig team when he was there with Openda and Danny Olmo, and when they had Sesko, and when they had any other players. I think there's God, I forgot the other guy they had on their team, but I think they had some more decent players. But when he was a part of that team, that RB Leipzig team was dangerous. They were a dangerous team. And you just wonder, with all the attacking things that we saw him do at RB Leipzig, why wasn't he able to bring that over to the Premier League? Why can't it translate over to the Premier League? And you can even ask yourself this: why is it when players leave, like take for example a Clement Longley, who came here to Tottenham, didn't do well, goes to Atletico Madrid, now he's in a semifinal. How does that happen? Well, I'll tell you why that happens, right? I come up with this metaphor, analogy, whatever you want to call it, to explain the situation, right? Right now, you have the ownership, right, you have the club, right? The club is the club. The club is what it is, right? It's the people inside of it that make the club what it is. As much as we like to believe that there's some sort of underlying ethos or heartbeat as if the club is alive and it's making its own decisions, it's not. Ownership makes the decisions on behalf of the club. The ownership sets the standards on behalf of the club. The ownership dictates whether this club goes up or down. And as we can see, it's going down, right? Why is that? It's because there's no backbone. The ownership have no backbone. They have no structure to how they want to go about things. There's no planning. There's no responsibility or accountability. They say things that either they don't mean or that they are never going to respond to just simply say it so that it's out there. It's flimsy. It's plastic. It's see-through. It means nothing. They're just saying it just to say it so that they can expend the hot breath out of their mouths. They don't actually mean it. There's no structure. There's no spine. There's no backbone to anything that they say. And that's been an issue for years, and that's translated down into the staff. It's translated down into the management. It's translated down into the players of the senior team, into the academy level, and it's trickled down into the fans as well. And I say all that to say, when you bring in players, I make up this analogy, right? There's no spine or backbone. So when you bring in a player, think of an arm, right? Think of my arm. You see my hand, right? You see my forearm. Look at this muscle, by the way, right? You see this, and you say, okay, there's clearly a bone. There's a bone in here. See my elbow? This is a bone. See my knuckles? These things poking out that are sticking out. These are bones, right? My hand, my arm needs bones. It doesn't matter how awesome and magnificent these muscles are, right? I need a bone in my arm to keep my arm up. If I wanted to hold my arm up like this, right? Yes, it's my muscles that are doing this, but it's my muscles that are attached to the stability of that bone in my arm that allows me to do this. So if I wanted to raise my arm up, I can, right? Now, if I didn't have a bone, right? It was just nothing but blood and muscle and sinew and veins in my arm, no bones, it would flop down. I wouldn't be able to lift up my arm. I could try to shake it all about, move it all around. It could go side to side. I could do this. I could try to flip it up and maybe it'll sit on my shoulder, but guess what? It would slide and fall right back down. I wouldn't be able to hold it up and uplift it. And the reason why I say that and I compare the ownership and everything to a bone is because there's no bone here at Tottenham. So when you bring in, let's just say, for example, the muscle is the players, right? Players are the muscle for Tottenham, right? It doesn't matter how big of muscles I have. It doesn't matter how many muscles are in my arm. The lack of muscles, huge bulging muscles, right? Slim but strong, sturdy muscle. It doesn't matter any type of muscle I have. If I have no bone, right? I have no bone, my arm will flop. I can get it to flop up. I can get it to flop down, but it won't stay consistent in its position because there's no bone. There's no structure to uphold the muscle, right? You could say the fans are like the blood that runs through the club, right? We're the blood that goes through your arm and then your veins and through your muscles, right? Very important, right? You need the blood in your arm. When your arm doesn't have blood in it, everything starts to die. Just like when you don't have the fan base there with the club, everything starts. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter the standards the ownership sets for the fans, right? If you don't have the fans there, they are the blood, right? The life matter that pumps through the club that makes it what it is, right? When you have bad blood in your body, it doesn't matter how many muscles you have. It doesn't even necessarily matter how strong that bone is. If there's bad blood going through your arm or through your hand, or you have no blood in it, guess what? Eventually it has to get cut off. It has to get cut off, right? So you could say like the fans are the blood. And the ownership, right? You could say the ownership is Well, I'm not really. The ownership needs to be that bone. They need to set up to be that bone, right? So when their ownership isn't the strong bone that we need, and they're not setting up to be sturdy for the players and the fans and whatever else that's in this arm to help be an arm to be able to move my hand, to move my elbow, my shoulder, to lift my hand up, to pick up things, to hold things, whatever I need that to do. If I don't have that bone, the ownership doesn't have that bone in place, the arm is going to flop. It's going to fall all over the place. It's going to be flipping all around, go side to side. I can try to flip it and do this and do that, but it won't be sturdy and I won't be able to do anything with it. And I say all that to say this. Again, the ownership, right? They have not provided this team for about the least, I would say the last decade, with that bone for us to be solid, to be sturdy. And because we don't have that bone, guess what? Even if we didn't have the big muscles, if we had that bone there, guess what you can do? You can work out to get muscles. I.e., you can bring in players through the academy. If you set up that structure, right? The ownership in setting up that bone is equivalent to the ownership saying, these are the standards we want to set. These are the heights we want to hit. We want to be successful. We want to do this. We want to do this. And this is how we're going to do it. This is the plan. We want to get, we want to have a certain amount of youth players playing a certain style. We want to bring in senior players of a certain level to play this style of play at a very high level. We want to bring in a manager who knows how to manage players, that knows how to see recruitment, who knows how to utilize the recruitment we have of playing that style, playing a certain way, and using the personnel that we have and finding the balance between it. All right? Job's not that easy, but the club needs to set that standard for everybody. They need to set up that bone so that it's there. So even if you say we want to play a certain way and we want to do this and we want to do that, but you know what? We just don't have the money. So we're going to have to rely on our youth academy. Okay. But we know that our standards are this. So we know we need to set up the youth academy players, or we need to only be bringing players from the youth academy that are doing this. If we want to play this style of play, we want to play the push and go that Tottenham is known for, the pass and go, pass and push, however you want to call it, right? If Tottenham wants to play that way, then we need to set up the youth academy to be that way. We need to set up the youth academy at every level, from under 12s, under 15s, under 16s, under 18s, under 20, under 21s, whatever age you want to say, that needs to be set up to where everybody's playing that way. And that we're only bringing players into the academy that show that they have the proficiency to play that way. And that we're only bringing players into the senior 11 team or into the senior team if they show that they can play that way at a very high level, right? Working out the arms to build that muscle that you may not have. You may not be born with the best muscle structure, but guess what? If you go to the gym, lift some weights, do some push-ups and sit-ups, you will build that muscle. It will build naturally. Yes, it will take a long time. You're not going to get bodybuilder strength going to the gym for 2 weeks. That just doesn't happen. But guess what? If you hit the gym consistently for 3 to 5 years and you set your goals appropriately, you can get big like a bodybuilder. You can set yourself up. You can create a plan by doing that. Yes, it won't be easy. It won't be fast, but you can get there. You can work out the muscle, right? And then guess what? Then when you have that muscle structure that you want, then you can start, okay, I want to start doing what do they call it? I forgot the name of the muscles that look nice, the muscles that you want to model off and stuff. My point being is that the ownership, they haven't set the bone for Tottenham within Tottenham for us to stand. So no matter how much blood goes through the arm, no matter how much muscle we may try to pack on our arms, no matter of the skin or veins or whatever, all that, if there's no bone there to help with the structure, it's useless. It's useless. And what we've been seeing for a while now is that the ownership has had no bone. I say backbone because I think it's easier, but I didn't want to use the example and say, oh, it's my spine, right? I think that would just be a little bit too complicated. So I just wanted to use my arm. You can even use your leg bone, whatever bone in your body you want to use. Oh my God.
Bruh.
Oh my goodness. I didn't mean to say it that way, but you get what I'm saying, right? You can use any any
Bruh.
bone, any
Bruh.
bone, any
Bruh.
bone that's in your body. Shut up. Shut up. Anyways, you get what I'm saying, right? We need to have that structure there, and the ownership hasn't been that structure. The fans, and it's leaked down to the fans, right? It's leaked down to the players. It's leaked down to the management. And to tie this all in, right? What I find funny, and we're about to end the stream. What I find funny is that when we have players that come in, like a Conor Gallagher, like a Christian Romero, like a Kulusevski, like an Archie Gray, like a Bergvall, fans immediately put on this expectation that these players are going to be the bones that we need. This player, this manager is going to turn into the bone in the arm that we need, and that just can't happen. They're not the bones. They don't have the bone. They're the muscle. They're the things that go on the bone to make the arm strong, right? Right? When you have a Conor Gallagher at Atletico Madrid, yes, he looks better. He probably even plays better than he plays at Tottenham. Why is that? Because Atletico Madrid already have a bone that's there. So packing on that extra muscle that is a Conor Gallagher, right? It makes the arm look better. Arm may not necessarily use the Conor Gallagher muscle when it's picking up things, when it's trying to lift things. But boy, does it look nice. Boy, that muscle looks like nice. Glamour muscle. That's the word I'm looking for, right? That 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 was the word I was looking for. The glamour muscle, right? That glamour muscle of Conor Gallagher is gonna look nice on the arm, even though it may not be used to actually pick up anything. It may not be utilized when the arm is being lifted up or when it has to hold something, grab something, pull on something, or push something, right? So when we bring in that glamour muscle that is Conor Gallagher to a team with no bone, guess what happens to the arm? It flops. It falls over. And you can say, but we have the glamour muscle of the Conor Gallaghers and the Van de Vens and the Christian Romeros, and we brought in the Jose Mourinhos and the Contes and all this. Why isn't it working? Because there's no bone in there. There's no bone in there. So whatever glamour muscle you want to add on to make the arm look nice, right? It's not going to be effective. It's not going to be actually able to hold or sustain anything because there's no bone there in the first place to support the muscle. And I find it funny that fans want players or they want managers to be that bone or to somehow walk into the meeting rooms with the ownership and convince them, hey, can you guys change your ways? Can you start doing this? Can you start doing that? It's unrealistic to put that expectation on a player, on a manager to change how your whole club operates, right? And I get it. These managers come in, they're the flavor of the month, right? Who's the flavor of the month now? Andoni Areola at Bournemouth, right? What he did with that Bournemouth team, wow, great. They have that Bournemouth team fighting for mid-table. Had one of the higher finishes they had in recent history. They're playing great football, even though they lost. They lost a lot of glamour muscles and the players that they have in Semenyo and I think they got rid of a couple center backs and they had Kirkes that left and everybody that that rated Bournemouth. The fact that Areola has been able to play a similar style, or it looks like Bournemouth hasn't been able to stop, is yes because of the manager. But what you'll quickly see is that once that manager leaves, that bone that looked great, that glamour muscle, right, that was covering up the bone, which is Bournemouth, you'll start to see, oh, wait a minute, that is not as strong as I thought. The bones that are within Bournemouth aren't as strong as I thought. Because once that manager left, you'll start to see that the arm slowly starts to fall down, starts to condense back up, starts to get loose, and then it'll eventually flop back down into its regular position, right? So you can have a manager come in and be the flavor of the month, be the glamour muscle that looks all nice, that gets the players doing this and that. But without that structure, without that bone, you won't actually see progression. And to kind of end it all off, that's what happens with that's what happened with Pochettino, in my opinion, right? We could say that the football was great. We could say Tottenham hit the highest heights they have in decades with that Pochettino team. But guess what happened once he left and those players left? The arm slowly condensed back down, felt loose. There's no structure, no strength to withhold that arm, and it just fell right back into place. And you wonder, well, how could that happen? If Tottenham was finishing second consecutively, they were in the Champions League all those years. They had the Harry Kane's son, Dele Alli. They had that back line of those great players. They had the great midfield with Dembele and all that, right? How could that happen? Well, that's because there was no backbone in place. That manager there, he wasn't actually the bone that held up that arm. He was simply a glamour muscle, right? And we expected Pochettino to try to change the culture, change how Tottenham operates, get the ownership to change. But we quickly saw that wasn't the case. Because when he did go up to the ownership and say, hey, I need these players, I need this, I need that, I want to do this, I want to do that, what did the ownership do? They looked him at him with a blank face and told him, you can go F off. We don't care. We're not going to buy a player for the next 3 seasons. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And as a matter of fact, if you're still not able to keep the arm up as a glamour muscle, we're going to fire you. Because I'm sure they knew they didn't have the bones in place. So they were probably looking at Pochettino like, if you can't do this, we'll fire you. And guess what happened? After he got fired. Oh, even though we had Mourinho and Conte, and maybe we had Ange, okay. But once he got rid of Ange, what happened? Arm slowly falls back down. We're not able to push. We're not able to uphold anything. We're not able to stay structurally solid and keep the arm up, even in the position that it's in, right? I'm not saying you could do a lot with this arm. I'm not saying there's a lot of muscle on this arm. But boy, when we have the bone in there, at least I'm able to do this. At least I'm able to do this. At least I'm able to do that. I have the capacity to do those things with the bone in my arm. But when there's no bone in my arm, it's just a flabby piece of muscle and veins and tissue and sinew and all that stuff. It's useless. It's nothing. So I say all that to end this, one, right, the ownership has to grow the backbone. It has to come from the ownership. As much as we don't think it will come from Enoch, that's why we need to get this ownership out, because they clearly show they don't have the capacity to have that backbone, to set up that structure for the club, to build. So we need to get rid of them. So that's one. Two, this mentality of no backbone, no spine has leaked down throughout the management staff. That's why you said, why is our medical team so bad? Well, because there's no sort of standards that the ownership is holding them to. Top it all off, right? Whenever we get a player like a Xavi Simons, whenever we get a player like you can say Kulusevski, for example, we're playing those players into the dirt because we don't have the recruitment. That backbone of the recruitment wasn't strong enough to make sure that there's 2 or 3 Kulusevskis on the team. There's 2 or 3 Xavi Simons on the team. So if one goes down, we can bring in another. We didn't recruit that way. So now these muscles, they get worn out. These muscles get blown, and then they don't operate the same way. Yes, you can bring them back. You can rehabilitate that muscle, but it won't operate the same way. You won't have that same capacity of movement and all that like it used to. So it's gone down to the staff. It's gone down to the players, right? It's gone down to the players because we can clearly see this is what it looks like when your players have no backbone, when they have no spine. They cry. They cry when they're frustrated and upset, and they don't care that they're embarrassing the club. They don't care that's an embarrassing sight. They have no backbone. There's nothing there. It's just them sitting there. Look at it, literally like a bag of muscle and tissue and blood with no structure, no spine, no nothing. Sitting there like a bag of pity and disgrace and sadness and emptiness and anger and frustration. That's what that looks like. That doesn't look like a player that's Stand up. Stand up. Be a man. Wipe your tears away. If you're going to cry, at least cry in the locker room where nobody can see you. But that's what it looks like when you have no... But look, he's got the captain armband on, and look what he's doing. He's sitting on the ground, crying. The captain of the team is on the ground crying like a little girl. You know why? Because there's no structure. There's no backbone to anything. He doesn't have that backbone. He doesn't have that structure. He's not, and he can't be that for the whole club. He can't. Van de Ven can't be the only thing that holds this club together. It doesn't work because once they leave, there's nothing there to uphold the arm anymore. There's no bone from the ownership that the ownership puts in place. There's no bone. That muscle is working pretty damn hard to do whatever it can to keep the arm in position as it is. But if there's no bone, and once that muscle leaves or it finally blows out or it finally gets worn out, the arm falls apart. And it's trickled down, my last point, to the fans, right? Because we have fans that will sit there and acknowledge all day, every day, oh man, well, you know, the club is it, or Enoch is the issue. Our ownership is the issue. Oh, if Enoch would just leave, if they would do this, if they could do that, then maybe things would change. But when it comes time to action, and it comes time to actually do something, funny enough, we don't want to protest. We don't want to do this. We don't want to boycott anything. As a matter of fact, we're going to the clubs on our knees.
Bruh.
Yes, that was flagrant. I want it to be flagrant. Yes, the fans are coming to the club on their knees, begging, "Can you please send the players through the streets so we can throw them a parade? Can you please? The fans need this pick me up. The fans need this. Can you please do this for us? Can you please let us go outside and play a little bit before the game starts? Can we please do this?" There's no backbone to the fans. There's no structure to the fans. The fans will come online and call the ownership the worst names. The see you next Tuesday, bastard, bitches, motherfuckers, whatever you want. They'll call them all those names. But when it comes down to the action, here we are seeing fan groups sitting there begging on their knees, "Can you please, club, can you do something for us? We just need this pick me up. We just want to feel good again. Can you?" It's like a fiend going to the drug dealer asking for another fix, right? Asking for another fix. And then when they get high, they get their fix, they get their high. "Man, fuck that dude. I don't care about that dude. That dude's mean. He's this, he's that, man. I can't do drugs no more. This ain't good for me. This ain't good." But guess what? As soon as it blows over, as soon as they need that high again, "Come on, man, give me another fix. Give me another. I just need another dose, man. I'll pay you tomorrow." So there's no spine. There's no spine to the fans. There's no spine to the players. There's no spine in the ownership. There's no backbone. That's why we see everything falls apart when it's time for action. When the ownership says we want to do this for the success of the club, but it's time to spin in that recruitment window, right? When they are recruiting, when they're finding the managers and the players, they're at a complete loss. They're scratching their heads. They don't know what to do. And then when they do make the decision, it looks like they're making the wrong decision because there's no structure even in that decision-making process. You brought in a player, or you bring in a manager in Thomas Frank, who he's not doesn't run anything. And then you provide him with the squad that isn't really good enough to do anything. This team just finished in 17th. Yes, they won a Europa League, but we're not in the Europa League anymore. We're not in that level of competition. We're in a higher level of competition. It's going to be tougher, right? And they did nothing to set him up for anything. So that fell apart. Thomas Frank came in with the highs. "Ooh, I love this job. Tottenham is a dream job for any manager. Any manager want to come here to do this and do that." Lo and behold, once we get into the season, I don't know what I'm doing. Apparently, I don't know what I'm doing. Apparently, I'm not a good manager, right? Fans tell me I suck, right? Players don't believe in me. We're losing in every game, so maybe I am a sucky manager, or it's the fans' fault. They're so mean to me. They're so mean to the players. What do you expect from us? Or even in the interview where he says, "Yeah, we're gonna lose games," right? He says the job is great, players are great. After a couple of training sessions, Well, we did finish in 17th. What do you think about the transfer window? Well, that's not how I usually run transfer windows. That's not usually a transfer window I like to be a part of. But what about the goals of finishing mid-table? Well, we did finish in 17th last season. We're going to be losing games, so it just depends on how many games you lose. And then, of course, again with the fans, right? Let's get this ownership out. The ownership is the issue. Rah, rah, rah. You can go to Spurs Twitter right now. How many posts are you going to see about Enoch out and how Enoch has mismanaged this club and how they provide no structure, no backbone for this club? But yet you don't see any fans talk about organizing any protests. You don't see any fans about talking about boycotting anything. You don't see any fans even showing any sort of they're not even trying to show that they're disappointed or that they don't like where the direction of this club is going when it comes to the actual outside display of it. They're just all keeping it within on Twitter as if the ownership is checking Twitter. Those people are 60, 70 years old. They're not fucking looking at Twitter, by the way. So people think Enoch out or the Enoch ownership are checking Twitter. They have a Twitter that they check out. They don't. They don't. Those are grown-ass men and women. Elderly men and women. They don't have Twitters. So if you think calling them to see you next Tuesday and cursing them out and saying all these horrible things about them on Twitter is going to somehow land in their lap, you're wrong. You're wrong. As a matter of fact, not only do they not have Twitters, they have peoples in place whose job it is to hide that stuff from them. There's people in the ownership that run that PR team that hide that stuff from the ownership so that they don't have to see it. So I'm just going to end it. I'm going to end it here because I could go on more and more, but we're going to end it here. I'm glad that you guys were able to join this stream. Again, I apologize about the stream a little bit later than usual, but, it is what it is. Listen, folks, let's take this moment to do the last minute logistics for me. If you could, at De La Spurs, saying at De La Spurs. Follow me, subscribe, hit the notification bell when you do, so you get those posts. You can see when it's coming in. You can see when I'm going live and everything. Feel free to leave a comment, share the content with your friends, family, loved ones. Let them know about De La Spurs. Let them get in on this greatness as well. I appreciate you guys spending your hump day evenings with me. I hope, again, you guys are having a good week so far. We're halfway through. Let's go ahead and finish it up strong. We're going to be back on Friday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, or at least try to be there at 6. We're going to be talking about previewing the De Zerbi Derby. The De Zerbi Derby with Roberto De Zerbi's former team in Brighton coming down to Tottenham. So we'll be talking about that and previewing the game, exactly what that means in our relegation fight. But until Friday at 6 p.m., I hope you guys have a good Wednesday night and good Thursday. I will see you all on Friday. Until then, peace.